Hi, I'm Chris from OuiCommunicate. I'm a French teacher who specialises in bilingual French classes, a rather rare approach to French and which has the advantage of bringing down to zero any miscommunication between teacher and student, be it linguistic or cultural, since we both understand each other perfectly. That's what this French school does. I published an article on my website, which you can read by clicking on the link below this video, called "How Long Would It Take to Learn French?", in which I provide my answer, and if you're ever curious to know a full rundown of how long it would take, give it a read. It tells you all about how I learnt German in 2 hours. Did I say 2 hours? I meant 2 months, sorry, 2 months. And in this video I'm just going to share with you what I believe to be the biggest time wasters in language learning. And keep in mind that I wrote this from the perspective of the adult learner who wants to get it done and wishes to go from A to B in the quickest way possible. Let's start. Okay, let's start the biggest time wasters in language learning. Number one, conversing with native speakers. Conversing with native speakers seems to make sense to a novice, by which I mean a person who doesn't have a lot of experience learning languages, but the fact is you don't walk away with anything quantifiable, and I'm underlining the word quantifiable. It gives the illusion of learning and might even boost your self-confidence, which is important. And myself, I had as many as 8 partners for German when I was still learning German. I have to say I never learned a thing, or at least nothing I could walk away with and say, before the conversation I knew this much, after the conversation I know that much. There was no way I could list my skills and say, I know this, that and that, and I've progressed in a quantifiable way. Now another problem is when you talk to native speakers, first of all they're not teachers, and they don't have a structured understanding of their own language. So they'll never say, for example, okay, we've been speaking in this tense and this tense so far, why don't we try a few passive sentences, because I've noticed you're quite shy when it comes to using this type of conjugation. The thing is, they don't have a structured understanding of their own language, and very often they'll say, I don't quite know what the rule is, but that's the way I say it. So they really don't have a consciousness of their first language, and they certainly can't compare their first language to your first language. So not only do they not have a structured understanding of their language, such as my German partners, but they really couldn't explain anything or contrast it with English. So we had a chat, I walked away, I didn't know what I had accomplished, and I quickly understood that it wasn't the way forward if I was to learn German sooner than later. Number 2, group classes. Indeed, group classes. Now, I'll let you in on a secret here. The simple reason all language schools encourage customers to buy group classes is not because they're better in any way, but because otherwise they would only get money from one paying customer for every class. So they'd rather pay the tutor once for 1 hour and have income from 20 paying students for each hour. Simple business. Group classes in any school are great at projecting the we're all in this together type of atmosphere, but the teacher quickly turns into an entertainer, because these classes are not targeted and are not designed to help you learn French sooner than later, and I taught these classes myself and I know their limitations. Which, by the way, is a thing you learn when you train to be a proper teacher, as I did. They tell you about the limitations of the space you work in, how to order the benches, how to use the space, and you learn all about the limitations of a classroom. Number 3, films with subtitles. Allow me to explain. Every YouTuber you know rants about how well this works, but this method, in my view, is similar to watching professional athletes do their sport and hope to extract knowledge from it. Do you exactly know what they're doing on the court? When you watch such films in a foreign language, you really don't have much of an idea what you're looking at on the level of the language. So you have no context. What exactly are they doing? What knowledge can I extract from it? And the mathematical chances of encountering and understanding all the foundational parts of French are extremely low. Just the statistics, it's very hard to say, the statistics of it are extremely low. And I mentioned passive sentences a moment ago. Do you think you could learn the passive in French just by watching films? extract a rule from it, understand what you're seeing, encounter all the exceptions, and gather it into a comprehensive structure. Could you do that by watching films? I'm not saying it's absolutely useless, but it's certainly not the fastest way to learn a language. Number 4, the famous apps and websites. Pick your favorite, it's in there. Think of it this way. What's the purpose of these big apps? The initial purpose. Do we think that Duolingo or the others were made for anything else than to provide a game? Do we believe that? Do we really think that they had in mind a revolutionary solution to learn all the languages in the world? And the reason these apps are so widely used isn't because of their quality. It's precisely because they were built with volume in mind. Their structure had to be scalable and designed to be sold to the biggest common denominator. Think of it in terms of music. Do you know Miles Davis? You probably know Miles Davis. Miles Davis is not stadium music, so the music of Miles Davis was not made to resonate through stadiums, to please thousands of listeners. But if you look at Rage Against the Machine, or Black Sabbath, or these metal bands, it was purposely designed for stadiums. So you design music according to the type of venue that you'll be playing it in. As a musician and a composer of songs, I've been in several bands. I noticed that when you start to play big stages, you start to think in terms of the effect of your music, so you have to space it out more. And for example, jazz really doesn't translate very well, especially not free jazz. It really doesn't translate very well to big venues because you don't get the intricacies of it. So you have to space out the beats more and more for it to resonate and echo through large venues. And language platforms are exactly the same. The initial impulse, the initial spark, when the people got together around that table and had their sheets of paper and pens out, okay, we want to design an app for languages. Who do we want to reach? How big do we want it to be? And how scalable is it going to be? And the purpose of these platforms or these apps was certainly not to get people to learn a language as quick as possible. Number 5, tutoring services. The issue I have with tutoring services is in their shallow purpose, volume over quality. Typically, a savvy website builder constructs a platform on which freelance tutors work for a cut of their rates. Not their pay, their rates. The pyramid structure format is very common in the field of languages, and quality is in direct contradiction to the owner's desire for volume. You'll never know their selection process for tutors, or even if they have the ability to judge of a good language tutor. And most language platform owners are from completely unrelated fields. That's when they actually disclose their identity, and very often you'll find that they're from business or marketing backgrounds, one of the two, but certainly not from proper teaching. And number 6, language tests. And I'm saying this because I often see people refer to the DELF test, DELF in French and so forth. But you have to understand, language tests were invented by governments to establish the level of an expatriate. Okay, so you change countries, they want to know before you get your visa and so forth what your language level is. It makes sense. But some larger schools then became official testing centres, which then opened the floodgates to a very abusive system. Remember that a language test is not the same as language learning. These are two different things. It's the same difference as between driving your car and studying for a test. So if you want to get good at French quickly, it has nothing to do with a DELF test. This is a completely separate skill. And if I remember correctly, there's the, what's it called, the TOEIC test for English, and there's a whole load of them. There's CELTA test, TOEIC test, and all of these, the Cambridge test. And you'll see people train you, help you to pass the test. And this proves what I'm saying. It has nothing to do with being able to speak English. It has to do with the skill of the test. How do you train, how do you practice to pass the English test or the French test? I've been driving for 30 years. When I came to the States, that ages me, doesn't it? When I came to the States, I had to redo my driving test. I've been driving forever and I had to learn it, and it wasn't easy. Well, actually it was easy because compared to Europe, they literally give away driving licenses. It was easy, but I still had to study for it, or at least learn some things, relearn what a double yellow line means and such things. But I could drive, of course I can. I used to be a bellboy. I've driven every car from Ferraris to Fiat Unos, you see, but I still had to relearn it, and it's a separate skill from driving, and the language tests have nothing to do with using French well. Okay, so this concludes this video on your biggest time wasters when learning a language. Agree or disagree, do leave a comment. I'm always open to a frank discussion on different methods. The link to the article is below the video. I do bilingual French classes, nothing lost in translation between you and I. My name's Chris from OuiCommunicate. I hope you like the video. See you soon.